Hey everyone, coming up in this episode of Front End Fire, Windsurf is in a new soap opera, Amazon has a new editor for spec-driven development, and Next.js 15.4 promises to help AI agents fix more bugs. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Front End Fire podcast, the web podcast that helps you stay up to date with the latest and greatest in the front end world. I'm your host today, Paige Niedringhouse, and I am joined by my co-hosts TJ Van Tol
Hey, everybody.
and Jack Harrington.
Hey, Paige.
We have lots of news to talk about this week. Of course, there's some AI news, but there's also some other interesting web dev news. So let's get to it. All right. TJ, would you like to open us up with news this week?
Yeah, this one's going to take a minute because Windsurf has been in the news this week. And this news is very businessy, but I think it is important to cover for our front-end audience because it touches a lot of tools that we use or you might potentially use. You might have some of these at work. You might be considering some of these tools. So I think it is important to understand this drama and who the players are here. So I'm going to start by just setting the stage a little bit. A couple weeks ago, not too long ago at all, we talked about Windsurf, which is a AI editor. It's a fork of VS Code. It is very similar to Cursor. It had been growing quite a bit, and they announced a deal where OpenAI was going to purchase Windsurf for $3 billion. And so the implication of this is like OpenAI would have a built-in editor, and they would have a way of pushing out presumably their models and other stuff they might want to do. From a business perspective, it made some sense. People assumed that was just going to go through and whatnot, and that was at least the temporary the thought.
You know what they say about assumptions.
Yes, everybody assumed that's kind of where things were going. So in the meantime, a couple things happened. First of all, as soon as this deal was announced, Anthropic announced that it was not offering its Claude models to Windsurf anymore, figuring, well, Claude competes with OpenAI, and if OpenAI and Windsurf are now one thing together, Claude did not want to offer its models to Windsurf. And there's some evidence that this pretty much immediately hurt Windsurf's business, which makes some sense. Claude's models are generally definitely considered by us on the show to be the best models to be using for development, front-end development.
Correct,
and otherwise. So losing access to the best models is a really, really big deal. So that's one thing that happened in the meantime. The other thing is Microsoft got involved as well. So the complication here is Microsoft has also a very interesting contract with OpenAI where Microsoft has access to some of OpenAI's underlying intellectual property. It's based off a deal Microsoft made with OpenAI a while ago that gave OpenAI access to Microsoft's hosting infrastructure. It's very complicated, but the reason it plays a part here is because, well, Microsoft makes VS Code. So if Microsoft would suddenly have access to Windsurf, which is a fork of VS Code that competes against things like GitHub Copilot, that's potentially a big deal that Windsurf wasn't super, super happy about. So anyways, they only bring this up that there was a couple different points of drama since the OpenAI and Windsurf deal was announced. And that sort of culminated with news earlier this week that the deal was suddenly off. OpenAI's planned acquisition of Windsurf was completely called off, which immediately triggered a few other things. So almost basically at the same time, Google announced that for $2.4 billion, so close to the amount that OpenAI paid, that they would be acquiring, or actually acqui-hiring, so they're not acquiring Windsurf. They instead, for $2.4 billion, hired away Windsurf's CEO, Varun Mohan, co-founder Douglas Chen, and research leaders and R&D people. It's said it's about 40 of the 250 employees at Windsurf in a $2.4 billion acqui-hire.
I did not know the number on that, and that is shocking.
So are they actually getting Windsurf in the process or just the people who are at the top of Windsurf?
the people and a, quote, non-exclusive license to certain Windsurf technologies. So they got some sort of licensing, and they took roughly 40 people from Windsurf for this amount of money.
That is the weirdest deal in the world. Like, I didn't know about the exclusive license to technology thing either. That means to me that, like, you've got some folks who personally hold on to patents within, like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a non-exclusive license because part of this is they left Windsurf as a company and part of the reason they do this, and there's been some other kind of weird deals in the AI world, is because they're trying to avoid antitrust scrutiny. So they're not acquiring Windsurf, right? They're just kind of taking key people from them and getting some non-exclusive access to their licensing to try to avoid potential FTC antitrust drama from doing a true acquisition. But
that's okay. Yeah. Wow.
So that's where this gets really businessy, and I'm not going to go too deep down that rabbit hole because there is one other story that comes. The only reason I bring this up, that Windsurf was still intact, is because the second big headline that came out of this is that since Windsurf was kind of left intact and had a 200-some person team, a product that was generating, $100 million in annual revenue or whatever, the people at Cognition stepped in. So Cognition, the makers of Devin, which is an agentic coding tool we've covered on this podcast
and
before,
used.
and used Devin as well. So Cognition has acquired Windsurf's IP and product, which include the IDE, alongside all of the employees who were not hired by Google. Windsurf's team will continue working on its AI-powered IDE, while Cognition works on its AI coding agent Devin, the company said in a press release. And eventually, Cognition says it will integrate Windsurf's IP and capabilities into its own products. So this story is all...
This is so complicated.
Right? Oh my God.
It's very wild, which is why I tried to break it down. Like I said, I don't think for the person listening to this, I don't think you need to know every in and out of these deals because it's kind of crazy. I guess the thing to know is, especially if you've used Windsurf or have been involved with it, Windsurf is going to continue. So Windsurf did lose the top of its teams. 40-some people from Windsurf are gone. They're now on Google. They're apparently going to be working on DeepSeek and other Google AI projects. But Windsurf, the product, is continuing. A good chunk of their team is there. And presumably you would assume Cognition's team would be involved in future product development of that as well. And funnily, almost immediately, both Cognition and Claude and Anthropic announced that Claude would be coming back to Windsurf. So now that it's no longer tied to OpenAI at all, Windsurf is getting Claude back. And if you go to Windsurf's website today, they call that out very prominently because presumably that was a big deal for people presumably leaving it. And now Claude is back, and Windsurf is still going on as part of Cognition.
Wow. It almost seems like Windsurf is being sold off for parts, the way that different companies are buying pieces of it, but not the whole.
It's weird how quickly, because Windsurf grew. Part of the reason Windsurf was acquired for so much, we balked at the $3 billion that OpenAI paid for it, is because it had grown from about $12 million in annual revenue to about $100 million in annual revenue in a year. And so when you see that sort of growth, that's the sort of thing VCs and such just salivate over. But as quickly as that sort of stuff can grow, it can also fall apart. So this drama with Claude, this drama with Microsoft threatened to just ruin the whole thing. And that's what set off this frenzy of what can we make of this? And apparently the deal is a chunk of Windsurf goes to Google just to work on Google stuff. And then the rest of it gets sold for scraps to Cognition, basically.
Hey. And OpenAI really is no stranger to this kind of crazy drama, right? There was the whole Sam Altman thing.
Right. Where, one weekend he was gone, and then he was back, and then he worked for Google or Microsoft.
What is going on? Yeah, Google definitely. I guess in terms of M&A just in general, this opens up a whole new thing. Normally it's the IPO gets announced and either happens or it doesn't happen. But like this whole like scoop in and scoop out part of the company, and blah. Really, this is gonna be a whole new thing now.
And
Whoa.
It's so surprising because Windsurf is built on top of VS Code. Like if VS Code didn't exist as a platform, there would be nothing for Windsurf to pin its AI to. So the fact that they have been bought by Google and Google's going to be absorbing part of them into itself. I mean, I wonder how Microsoft feels about all of this.
Whatever happens if like Microsoft turns off the VS Code spigot, like there's like 10 different players, and now including Google. I think actually, but I think Google, some of like their coding tools were based on like the web version of VS Code.
It's funny because Paige and I were just on a work trip this past week, and when we were describing the podcast, it was like, well, half of what we talk about is people building things on top of Chromium and people building things on top of VS Code. Like it's amazing how like those two core pieces of technology drive so much of the web and all the business around it, and it's this show is just proving that out even more.
Mm-hmm.
So true.
Well, that is going to be wild to follow in the coming weeks, seeing what Google does with it and what Cognition does with it. We'll keep you posted as Windsurf continues to, I guess, be talked about and absorbed. So, Jack, let's talk about your news for the week.
Yeah. So, talking about VS Code forks, we got another one. Now we got AWS has come out with their VS Code fork called Kiro, Kiro. And it's available for download now. And it's another agentic AI play built on top of VS Code. The kind of really interesting twist on this one is that it's more spec driven. So I've been playing with it for a couple weeks. I actually had access to it before it went live. And it's really cool. So the idea is there is a vibe mode. So if you just want to vibe, that's cool. You can do that. But if you can also vibe into a spec, and then it will go and create a design and it'll create a requirements document and a design document. And those are actually like in your project as like source code control markdown files. And at each point you can kind of go along and say, oh, I didn't mean that, or I didn't mean this, or you can refine it. And then you just kind of let it go. Boom. Just let it go agentic on that. And the results are actually quite good. Like if you actually spend the time up front to give it a better spec and design and requirements doc, it actually, it kind of reads dry. It reads very kind of waterfally, and it's a little bit of this. And, it doesn't vibe like the vibe coding stuff does. But at the same time, like I had to do the tic-tac-toe thing. And yes, it like took a little bit longer to like spec out the whole like, okay, this is how tic-tac-toe works, blah, 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 kind of thing. And how to test it, right? And the fact that it was going to be like, you're going to play against the computer and the computer is going to make moves. So it's a little more complicated than I usually do. But it nailed it. And it actually got like full on unit tests, and you could actually see it like bouncing the unit test and then, going back through. It's actually, it was quite cool. And I ended up like, accidentally quitting Kiro like halfway through, and it picked up where it left off when it came back in. So it's a pretty slick solution, I gotta say. So if you're into, and then we've been hearing a lot more about this from folks using like Claude Code, where they're doing more of a spec driven style approach to development as opposed to just straight vibe coding and letting it kind of interpret what you want, so it seems to be the way now that the serious folks who are seriously using AI in a serious way to code are doing spec driven, and that's where Kiro is kind of coming in and saying this is the way we're going to do it.
It's a cool idea. I mean, I can see where this would be valuable. I don't know if you need a whole editor fork to make this happen. It seems like a little bit much, because what is their reasoning behind having a whole editor for this? I see from the screenshots, at least, that they have some dedicated pages where you can actually put in these specs, but it doesn't look like it's all that unique. It looks like just some extra text boxes that you're putting these in. Am I missing something?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think they want to be in this game, and they need a key differentiating feature. And this was that. I don't know,
Okay.
how,
So
how
is
much more
Kiro
we can do.
trying to play a product manager? Like if you give it something as kind of like this is the high level idea, will it try and suss out more from you to make the spec more complete, kind of like how a developer needs to when they're given a design, but there's still some questions about how things should be implemented?
I haven't seen it do that,
Okay.
but the process of it going through and turning your initial spec into requirements and then design document, like it helps you go through that. I mean, you do really have
Hmm.
to like read it and say, "Oh, I see. You kind of made a mistake here," and then you can kind of go back into you can either fix it right there in the Markdown document if you want to, or you can go and actually kind of vibe into it and say, hey, I misunderstood this, and it'll actually go back and change all of the documents associated with it. It does have kind of like a task tracking system as well, which is kind of neat. You can actually see the progress, so that's cool. Yeah, I gotta say, like it feels different. It feels you have a lot more confidence in the output of the code as opposed to this. I remember that we had like a whole thing about like vibing rules or whatever, where it's like, and one of them was like, well, if it doesn't do what you like, just re-roll, and it's like,
Yeah.
no, it's not great. Like I wanted to actually do what I tell it to do. And, this makes it so you have to kind of give it that granularity that
Yeah.
accomplishes what you.
From the little bit that I looked at Kiro's documentation and the kind of promotional videos and stuff that they had around it that you shared, it looks like it's trying to say that it will be better at writing maintainable code and scalable code and code that is secure, which is something that we've seen vibe coding fall flat before. People will vibe code it and then just push it into the internet, and the internet will immediately destroy it because they can. So is that kind of Kiro's trying to be like, we're smarter and we think harder about the things that you don't necessarily know about, but would if you were a developer who did this, for any length of time?
Yeah, I think that's going to be captured in those documents, right? Is, as it interprets that, it's going to be looking for, are there, security. You're asking me to go and add an API. Let's just make sure that that API is secure and
Yeah.
tested and all that, So I
Right.
think, yeah. And then
Claude
if it's
just
not there,
doesn't say, great idea, let's do it.
that's a fantastic idea. That's an amazing idea.
You're
You're
right.
right.
You're right. Yeah. You gotta admit that it's a nice little ego boost whenever you deal with Claude.
Yeah. The other thing interesting about this editor is, so Amazon, the AWS team is creating this, but if you look at their actual page, Kiro.dev, and look it over, you'd never know it. It's strange to me that they're kind of hiding the brand a little bit. I mean, I don't know if that's done purposefully or not, but you don't see the Amazon or AWS name on this, and you'd think they kind of want to. Amazon and AWS are the positive brands in the software development world, so you think they try to make a big deal to make it seem like this isn't just like some random startup, that there's actually a serious, like, large engineering org behind this. So yeah, I don't know. I don't totally understand, but it's just a little bit weird.
Well, it's funny you say startup, because I actually am working with this particular team. We're going to be doing a thing next week where I do some video shoots with them and that sort of stuff. So, and they run internally like a startup inside of AWS, from what I've seen.
Oh, okay.
Their own little group.
Yeah, exactly. And so they set their own timelines, and that's, I mean, from what I understand, I've never worked at Amazon, but from what I understand, I mean, all the groups kind of consider themselves that way, because there's a whole pizza box team, right? So the idea that you're the size of your team that handles a particular feature, like let's say the customer recommendations feature, is just enough people to consume 2 large pizzas. So pizza box team, and everybody would be included: QA, devs, product managers, the whole thing, and they would be empowered to do whatever they need to do to make that business unit successful. So the Valley has tried to like take that, and that's what I don't know how big this particular team is. I've only talked to a couple of people. I get to meet them on Monday, but So we'll see. But yeah, no, it is like an internal startup. But you're right. Actually, looking through the Kiro.dev stuff, it is kind of like, ooh, wow, okay. The AWS is only mentioned like in where the telemetry goes, and the fact that you use an AWS Builder account to log in. I think it's cool though that they give a lot of this away for free. So that's cool.
Yeah.
And it looks like right now you just have to join the wait list because it looks like you can't
that's true.
download it quite yet too.
So is there any pricing that you know of so far? Any subscription required?
There's the Builder account, but the Builder accounts are free.
Right.
So
not so far?
Not so far. Yeah.
Okay.
There's also hooks, which are kind of interesting. Like, you can get agents to come in at particular times inside of the workflow, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, they say on their website that during our preview period, take advantage of reasonable limits at no cost.
Nice.
So,
Oh, there you go then. Okay.
Get you hooked and then tell you there's a price.
Do you guys want me to get you in?
Sure.
Sure.
I'll try anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll try anything.
Why not?
Seeing the evolution of you two through like this whole AI thing of like originally like what is Copilot again? All the way through to like, now it's like fully into whatever. Just yes, agentic ID. Let's go.
Sign me up.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, also like I think the very nature of the fact that we run a podcast like this means we're more amenable to tools. To tools like this and trying stuff out.
We got to come up with news every week, right?
Exactly.
Try this out, and it blew up in my face.
The amount of random stuff I have installed on my computer is, I've got so many editors, so many browsers nowadays. I'm running like 10 browsers installed.
There's apparently a Strawberry browser out there I need to take a look at now. I don't even know.
I've not heard of Strawberry.
Yeah, hold on. We can go find this thing. But anyway, yeah. So, Strawberry browser.
Very cool.
There it is, Strawberry Kiro. Browser. I wasn't hallucinating. Yes, the intelligent. Oh, yeah, it's another browser with AI bolted on the side, like Dia, like all those guys. I'm still using Dia though. I'm a fan.
Yeah, I actually had a good opportunity to use Dia this past week because, as TJ mentioned, we were on a work trip, and one of our days on the trip was a hackathon, and we were given. In the morning, we were given like, here is this new project. You have no prior knowledge or understanding of it. It was an IoT and web app build a project in a day. And Dia was great because I just opened up all the project specs, which were written in Confluence, and it had a bunch of sensors in there and like background info on the fake company that we were working for. And Dia was able to tell me all about those sensors, what they did, provide links to their documentation in Adafruit and wherever else it was written. It was very impressive with coming up to speed on stuff that I had no prior knowledge of or experience with. So
that's awesome.
That was cool. Yeah, that was useful.
I mean, I'm dyslexic, so I misread stuff all the time, and so that's I end up doing that a lot with like I'll get an article or something like that, and it's super huge, and I'm kind of skim through it at my usual thing, and then I'll be like, did I read this right? That da 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 da, and it's like no or yes or whatever, and it's been very helpful with that.
Yeah,
and it doesn't use Sonnet, so it's not like blowing smoke all the time about that was a great idea, It's a little bit more intense than that. Actually, I asked it what its model was, and it was very cagey about like, no, I'm a custom model. You never see anything like me. But then you look at it, and sometimes it'll tell you like, oh, that was answered by GPT 4.1.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Like especially if you just open up a new tab and you start typing a prompt, a lot of the time it's answered by GPT 4.1.
Huh.
And I'm not paying for that either. So
yeah. I wonder if maybe they're using different models for different tasks or combinations of them. I mean, we were talking about this a little bit on our Discord channel with some of our listeners, but the fact that they're not charging for it means that they are learning from it, and we are their income stream or their data stream.
That's not where I thought you were going to go with that. Where I thought you were going to go with was like the idea of using different models for different things, which I think is an area where we're going to start to see a lot. We're going to see a lot more of these smaller, like 3 billion parameter models, like specifically trained for specific tasks or used in like combination in like a multi-agent space. So like this thing goes off and does that because it's really good at that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
We'll start to see a lot of that.
The thing about that, we are the product sort of thing that's been true forever. The thing that makes AI a little bit different is the costs are a lot more. You can, whereas before you're like, oh, you are the product when you use Facebook and Twitter. It's like, okay, yeah, the Facebook and Twitter, whatever, take on some costs from running that. But running an AI model is not cheap. So if you're doing that, you're taking on quite a bit of cost. And I think the game now is some of these acquisitions have shown is if you can try to use VC money to build up a user base and just eat the cost to build your user base. And then hopefully from there, you'll have potential acquisition targets or different funding options opened up from doing that.
And it's not clear if it's not like a house of cards. Like, is Anthropic profitable? No.
Yeah, who knows?
I don't think so. And I don't think OpenAI is either. So I think we're actually, even at the ground floor of like GPT and Sonnet, right, those are losing money. And then the services built on top of those are losing money. And this could get really interesting.
Flowing in,
there could be some tulip level collapse here.
Yeah, how is it eventually going to make money? Because you can't run on VC money forever.
You cannot.
But we're going to try.
Right. We'll figure that out later.
Right. Step 3, profit.
Yeah. All right. So my news for this week is slightly more web devy. Next.js 15.4 is officially out. So it's not the biggest release ever for Next.js, but they do tease Next.js 16, which is coming maybe later this summer, maybe in the fall. But for Next.js 15.4, they have reached 100% integration test compatibility with TurboPack. Nice. So all 8,298 tests that TurboPack can pass now, and it now powers Vercel.com to production, they say. So expect that for Next.js 16 to be in beta and stable and ready for everybody to use. They say that there are stability improvements, and that is literally from their change logs. It's like these 2 bullet points of TurboPack, 100% test compatibility, and then stability improvements, which I just assume is all the, minor stuff that people have tried, found, fixed. But one thing that Jack came across on Twitter, which they don't call out specifically, and I really think that they missed the boat by not, is that there is a new experimental flag called Browser Debug Info in Terminal. And what it is for is that it will forward browser console output to the terminal so that your AI agent, Cursor, Claude Code, VS Code, can see the client-side errors and fix them for you. So instead of you having to take screenshots, which I think we all do at this point, and say, hey, there's this error, fix it, now it can see that without you having to do that, at least in Next.js, which is pretty cool, I think.
Yeah. I should check that out because Console Ninja has been around for a long time that does this. And I wonder if, could that actually go could that feed it back into the AI? But that's definitely the thing. You want your AI to be able to run your unit tests, scan the results, do it again, and hopefully eventually resolve while it's draining your bank account.
Well, I noticed in the last few months, it's more common for these agents to ask you to just take the browser console output and give it to it. I've noticed that I was messing with Claude Code actually just this week, and I ran into a problem where Claude Code was very convinced that what it was doing was right. And
it always is.
And I was telling it like, no, there's some issue. It wasn't loading data correctly. It was showing like not a number in the browser, and I was like, well, that's not good. But it was like, I got the data. It looks fine. So what it had me do is it logged a bunch of stuff, and then it asked me to give it the log. And so if that becomes a more common paradigm, this seems like a rather interesting way of solving that, because in a way you're just making it available so the agent can skip that step and just log on its own and read the log. And in theory, it should be seamless because all these frameworks now basically auto refresh. So the agent can add the logs, the app would auto refresh, the console logs would get funneled into the terminal. In theory, it could integrate and see those console logs flowing in and then react to the messages it's getting back. And whether this will work in practice, I guess we'll see. But it's a really fascinating idea.
It is. It is. I feel the same way. I had a similar issue with invalid dates that were showing up unformatted. They were just showing as invalid date instead of like the actual date time string. And same thing. Claude put in a whole bunch of console logs, asked me to copy the output at various points and paste it back to it. And it eventually figured it out. But if you didn't have to do that, wouldn't that be great?
Can I just say that I feel personally validated by that? I've been like a console log guy for a long time, and people are like, "You should use a debugger," and I'm like, "Nah, yeah." It's like it's always a pain in the butt to set up.
It is such a pain.
It's like
Debugger
log, just console log.
Yeah, debugger in JavaScript is just overkill 99% of the time. I get it for compiled code, Java, things like that. It makes sense, and it's a lot easier to set up in the first place. But yeah, JavaScript, just console log all over.
Tell me this variable is null or undefined. I don't really need a debugger to actually know what the value is. It's probably null or undefined, like as it says.
Yeah, for me, the debugger is only after my after an extensive console.log session. If I still can't figure it out, sometimes there are certain occasions where it's nice to be in the debugger because you can stop, you can change something and see if that recreates the problem you're having. There are certain circumstances where it helps a lot. But I feel like Paige said, like at very least 90+% of situations I go into, the just logging something real quick is sufficient for me to figure out what the problem is. So
the only time I ever use it is when like I set a breakpoint in the browser when I run into the how the heck did I get here? Thing where it's like, what? Like I just clicked this button over here. Like I should not be in this part of the code at all.
Yeah. And I think that the way that we write code has changed a lot because I remember in the past it was more useful when you were mutating values. Like you'd have an object or you'd have an array and you'd mutate the original. And that's why you'd cause bugs and race conditions and weird stuff. But we've become such an immutable style of programming now that people don't do that. They make copies and then they mutate the copies, or they have new outputs. So I think that there's maybe just less of that going on in traditional JavaScript and TypeScript development than there used to be.
Yeah, not only is our stuff immutable, but we're using some library that's doing immutability under the hood. So we're even more abstracted away, and we just call some library to handle all that for us. And
sounds about right.
But yeah, it's good. Try it out if you let us know what you think of it. I definitely am looking forward to trying to update some of my Next.js projects and see if this works and how well it works. So that'll be cool. All right, I think that wraps up our main news segment, but I know that we have some bonus news. So let's talk about lightning news.
Rain's falling down, it's a lightning strike.
Who wants to start off lightning news this week?
I'll go. So Figma has added to its design tools a new effect for glass. So, Apple being Apple and setting the design world on fire. I guess on their way out to Burning Man, the designers just decided to add glass support into Figma. And it's pretty good, actually. It's got a bunch of different options in there for refraction and the depth of I guess the thickness of the glass and the dispersion. And you can make it frosty if you want that kind of thing. And you can also change the angle of the lighting and all that. So that's all now in Figma. The interesting things that I found out when I played around with was ain't no way it's going into CSS.
That's exactly what I was wondering. I was like, well,
nah. You look at the code, it comes out. It's like if you've chosen frosty, then that'll go in. But other than that, because in reality, and in fact, I went on to basically say, okay, cool, Claude, here. and do a Claude experiment, go in, here's what it looks like in Figma. Can you reproduce this in React? And it could not. And it turns out, and then I Google around, and people have there's been a lot of talk about how to do this in CSS. It primarily involves SVG layers and some stuff in that.
I was going to say, because
the whole thing.
The whole point of it, and part of why this caused some drama, is because it's somewhat computationally expensive, because to do those sort of refraction effects, or to simulate the effect light has on a surface like this, some of it is just math around the pixels and how that it should actually be rendered. And so I imagine you could do it in JavaScript. So maybe we'll start seeing JavaScript, glass libraries come out for creating these sort of effects. But like I said, I don't think you can do this in CSS unless, if you have SVGs that maybe you can warp in some strange way. But
yeah, you get put some filters on some SVGs. I think you can get close-ish, but the examples that I saw all had weird artifacts, it was dimply glass or whatever. It was just weird. And then if you think oh, Jack, come on, man. You should just be able to right click on the Figma panel itself and be able to just say what CSS are you putting on there? Well, guess what, big guy? They use a canvas. In all of Figma is a canvas. So they're drawing that direct. There's no DOM. There's DOM on the sides with the panels and all that, and all the controls to go in, but the main drawing area, that's all canvas. So they're emulating CSS, and in fact, in this case, they're not even doing that because they're not even trying.
So if you wanted to take your Figma design and make it real, does that mean that you just have to create PNGs or JPEGs or SVGs of those design elements that are glassy?
Boy.
Probably yes.
Yeah. If you really want pixel perfect stuff. But that's not going to get you there, because at the end of the day, you want, the whole idea is if you're scrolling over content and stuff.
Yeah, it's dynamic.
Yeah, the dynamic stuff and things. I don't know. I think, maybe you can try and convince your designer that, maybe this isn't worth all of that, and to use sort of quote unquote traditional glassmorphic stuff, which is basically just a background.
Yeah, it's filters, blurs.
Yeah,
semi-transparency,
it
looks really nice.
And stuff like that.
Yeah,
it does.
It looks really nice, and it's not going to melt your phone.
Yeah, but I can totally see why Figma is doing this, though, because Apple announces some new paradigm. If you're in the design space, you want to have these headlines that Figma is supporting it right away before iOS 26 is even out. Figma's got support, so if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I can tell you from having worked at Macromedia back in the day, there was kind of a 4-company kind of rotational cycle between imagine Figma and Macromedia existed at the same time. There was all these different companies. There was Macromedia, Adobe, Figma, and Apple, who all were kind of in that designy, arty space. Mm-hmm. And people would just kind of rotate around within that space. So you get folks who were at Adobe who went over to Figma, and then they're at so it's all kind of a piece. So of course you get the glass moving around kind of thing. Is it a good idea? I don't know. Nobody a lot of people hate this glass thing.
A lot of accessibility advocates are very concerned about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
For good reason. And now CSS devs will be as well.
Well, we'll see what Apple actually shifts. I had heard some of the latest betas, they toned it down a little bit based off feedback. So I'm reserving judgment myself until it ships as a stable version and can try it out.
And I can tell you, I'm on an iPhone 14 Pro Max, which I always thought was a pretty decent phone, and it just does not like the glass stuff. And that's a decent phone,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not unusual for Apple to require the latest hardware, but yeah.
Yeah, Apple does planned obsolescence better than anyone by just not supporting new features in old phones or Macs.
Come on, just like a GPU level glass effect? Really? My phone can't do that? Yeah, crazy.
All right. So I have some extra news, which is we were already talking about Vercel, but Lee Robinson, who has been the DevRel advocate, hero, VP of DevRel, fill in the blank, for the last 5 years, has left Vercel. He hasn't said what he's going on to do next. Maybe take some time and just relax a little bit, but all good things. It sounds like they parted on very good terms. He had nothing but good things to say about his time there and all the incredible stuff that they did. He went from the company when it was 30 people and $1 million in annual recurring revenue to, I think, 250 people and or maybe $250 million in annual recurring revenue. I can't, maybe it was
One of
600
those.
people.
It's big.
One of those.
Yeah.
Big numbers, really fast growth timeline. But yeah, best of luck to him and whatever he goes on to do. I'm sure we will be seeing more of him in the near future somewhere else doing something great. So yeah, good job, Lee. You really made an impact.
He really did. He's like the heart and soul. And when I mean heart, I really mean heart. He's just in general, like just a really nice guy, very easy to talk to and very, like direct and, into it, also into the AI stuff. So yeah, he's just a fantastic. Wherever he gets gobbled up, they are lucky to have him.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have any other bonus news? Nope. All right. Well, let's talk about what is making us happy this week. All right. Jack, what's making you happy?
So for my birthday, my wife got me a new single cup coffee maker from Ninja. And I got to tell you, we just had it for a day, but we are in love with this thing.
What was the brand again? Can you spell that?
Ninja, just Ninja.
Just Ninja.
Just
okay.
Sorry, I just gave it like the big,
Ninja,
some flair. Little flair on there. But it's exactly what you want. It's got a nice refillable tank. The UI, it's just very how do you like your coffee? How much coffee do you want? Go. It supports K-cups, or in our case, we just use grounds. It cleans up really nicely. So my wife's on decaf, I'm on calf, and we are 100% guaranteed that there's not going to be an overlap between those two things. And just these little design features that are just so nice. I don't know about you, but at the bottom of a coffee machine, oftentimes there's always a little area where any extra coffee goes into a little reservoir kind of thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to tilt it up to get it out to go and clean it. And then the tilting up thing makes more mess. And you're like, what? And then, so this one you just kind of lift up and out, it's just these little things that make all the difference. And apparently my wife said that this was designed by a woman. So hats off to her for making just a fantastic coffee maker. We'll put it in the show notes and you can go grab yourself one. Not sponsored, obviously, but if you like coffee, you don't want to do the carafe thing, this is a great way to go.
It's cool that it will do both K-cups and grounds. I think that's really a nice feature because it seems like you're either locked into one or the other with so many of these coffee makers. Yeah,
and K-cups they're handy, I will say. But we do that on the road sometimes. We have a place down in Sisters that we go to, and they've got K-cups down there. But we only do it for a couple of days, and they always feel kind of bad about the waste. But here it's just just use grounds.
We've got a older Keurig machine that can do both because there's this little insert you can use for grounds.
Yeah,
having both is nice because sometimes you do just want the convenience, and it's not going to taste quite as good, but it's fine enough and you're in a hurry or whatever. And there's this brand of K-cups that we have that are they're basically decomposable. So there's no plastic involved with them. I think it's San Francisco Bay. Let me Google that real quick. Just in case you are a Keurig person. Of course, I Google San Francisco Bay and I'm going to find it's information about, okay. Yes, San Francisco Bay compostable coffee pods. So if you are a Keurig person, maybe look into them.
Yeah. Put up a link and I'll grab some. I think that's very cool. Because I do like the convenience, but I just feel bad about the plastic waste.
Yeah. Nice. Well, and belated happy birthday.
Well, thank you.
All right. TJ, what's making you happy this week?
Shuffleboard is making me happy, which Paige is familiar with because we were actually just playing shuffleboard the other night. We We have a tradition at Blues that started, actually, it started with a couple of us that played shuffleboard at a bar one time. And this is the tabletop shuffleboard.
Yeah, okay.
If you've seen it
with the little
bars before.
beads.
And if anybody hasn't seen it before, it's basically a long wooden table, essentially. And usually you put some sort of sand on top. And then you have these metal discs, kind of is maybe the best way to describe them, that you slide on the table. And it's similar to, say, like curling, whereas curling, though, has a target you're trying to hit. With shuffleboard, you're trying to get it as close to the end of the table without going off. And it's a great game for groups because it's super beginner friendly. Like anybody can just step up and play this. There's really not much. There's obviously some skill. If you play it some, you learn some of the strategy behind it. You get better at timing, or basically gauging how far you throw it and such. But if you just step up, you can play shuffleboard. And it's become our tradition to do it on these work trips. And so we played a few rounds. I was a little rusty at first, but then I got better. Paige opened up the opposite. Paige had some just incredible shots to start.
Nice.
And then
I fell off towards the end.
Then kind of fell off, but
Yeah,
it happens. Even if I play bad, it's still just a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's great.
That's a good one. Good choice.
We've thought about getting one for our basement because my wife also really loves shuffleboard. In fact, my obsession with it came from her back in the day. We love it a lot. But the thing is, these tables are so big. If you haven't seen one of them before, they're very large.
They're ginormous.
And it's like, technically one would fit in our basement, but it would be like
most of your basement.
Yeah, it would be a sizable chunk of the basement. And that's kept us from doing that. But we do try to look for any excuse to play when we're out and about.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Seems like it's been like I don't remember it being on the East Coast, but all over the West Coast. So I guess it's in Boston.
It is in Boston, yeah.
Yeah. So I first saw it like in the Bay Area. And it seems like it kind of like, I can imagine like it would be humidity would be an issue, like would change like the dynamics of like the silicon whatever that they put on it.
I'm sure it would.
Moves. So maybe that's why I didn't see it when I was like in Florida. So they're like,
yeah,
I gotta go play here.
But it's all indoors. Like
that's true.
I mean, well, typically all indoors.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's big in Michigan. We have a place called Lansing Shuffle that has a bunch of restaurants, and it has the outdoor shuffleboard spots, and then indoors it has the shuffleboard tables, and it's a really cool little spot right in downtown Lansing. So
very cool.
Nice. All right, so my choice for this week is going to be a novel that TJ has already recommended, but I started reading it. It is called The Will of the Many, and it is, I think, the first of a threesome, which is not yet written or finished. So if you don't like trios until they're done, hold up. But but if you don't mind waiting, it's really good. It's a fantasy novel, but it's kind of a different twist than a lot of the fantasy novels of late, I would say. Yeah, and it's been really fun to read. I've been on a lot of planes in the past week, so it's been great to just pull out the Kindle and get through some chapters while I'm sitting on a plane. And I look forward to finishing it. I'm only halfway through, so TJ and I can't talk about it yet, but once I'm done, we will discuss. And it's been really, really enjoyable read so far.
It's so good. The only downside is the second book was supposedly going to be out by now from when I read it several months ago, and I've not heard any updates on that. So the only concern with starting a series like this is whether it'll actually get finished. And I'll have to reread it too at some point. But it was such a good book that I'm happy to reread it when the later books do come out, as long as they do.
Yeah, looking at you, Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's damaged the whole book industry at this point because of this thing,
Yeah, now people don't trust authors.
Exactly.
Maybe AI will be good enough though for these ones that don't get finished. We'll just throw Claude at it or whatever. We'll give it a spec in what Kiro, right? Whatever. We'll write up a spec for the later books, and then we'll just have Claude attack it.
We know that HBO has to have some sort of a decent outline because they got it from him to finish the series. So yeah, maybe that's possible.
Certainly felt like they were working off an outline.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I immediately went and Googled this and sent this to my wife because she's always like, "What is PageSpec? What's PageSpec?" And so I'm just loving the synopsis here. An elite Katanin Academy young fugitive uncovers later mistress. Like, oh, okay, here we go again. Like,
Yep, exactly.
Young people, academy, probably some special magical skills rocking around here or something like that.
100%.
Oh,
Yep.
there you go.
Yep.
There
They're the only ones who have time. All the older people have jobs and families and just can't spend the time.
So true.
And some people have powers you don't know about. Some people have, backgrounds. You don't know some of the backgrounds of people because that's always important as well. It's very tropey, but it does have a couple really unique things going for it. It's not all just tropes. There's a couple really interesting concepts, and some of it though is very spoilery, so I can't get into it without getting into it. But it's a very good book.
And I think that is going to wrap up our episode for this week. So thanks as always to our sponsor, the Blue Collar Coder YouTube channel. If you want to come and talk to us, you can find us on the Blue Collar Coder Discord. We've had some good conversations about browsers and AI and all sorts of other things in there lately. We're on X, we're on Blue Sky, we're on our website. So come hang out with us and tell us what you think about what are books that you're reading, what are AI tools that you're using that we need to try, all that good stuff.
Absolutely.